Hi, everybody. This is going to be an introduction to week 2 of LIB 316, Historical Context and Literature. So in week 1, we examined basically pre-establishment of the United States history with a special focus on slavery, and then up through the period leading up into the colonial period, essentially, although colonialism was going on back then as well. But to follow the trajectory of the course and of the textbook, the next part of the course, so we're in week 2, the next part of the book, of the course, is about colonialism. So this week you'll have one discussion, and I'll have another video about the discussion, and also you'll have an assignment, and I'll have another video about the assignment. So this week we're going to be examining basically colonialism and conceptions that led to essentially the subjugation of various groups across the world. And we'll particularly be focusing on European colonialism in Africa, although there'll be some other things that you'll read about as well. For example, Haiti, the United States, and then India and Asia as well. So again, so the course has an overview for week 2, so make sure that you read that, and then the resources for the week. So this week you will have to, I'll be assigning a reading again, which for this week, for the second discussion, you'll be reading Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. And it's probably about 130 pages, so just jump right in. It's a book that has caused a lot of reaction, both positive and negative. I'll just leave it at that for now. So chapter 3 of the textbook you're supposed to read as well, which is on imperialism, so the time from 1850 to 1900. There's an article. You'll specifically be reading the section called Knowing the Oriental. Please don't take offense to this language right now. You will see that actually this article is about the conception of the Oriental, which now, just if you're not aware, is not an appropriate way to refer to anyone or anything, but in the past, many different types of people were called Orientals, but it was a concept that developed in Western European societies, and this article is focused on the conception of Orientalism in British society in particular, in relation to India, but also in relation to Asia as well. And then there's a 10-minute section on colonialism in Africa and all the different countries. You might not be aware, but Africa was essentially split up into various portions that were controlled by, for example, the Dutch, Germans, French, and British, and that's why even to this day in Africa, in many places, people speak French in addition to the indigenous languages and other languages that are spoken. Often in African countries, people speak multiple languages, including Western European languages as well. And then there are the recommended resources that we have here if you want to get into it deeper. I haven't posted the discussion yet, so that'll be in a separate video after I think about it and post it. But again, this week you will have a discussion and a written assignment. And the written assignment is based on the section of the article called Knowing the Oriental. I'll talk more about the written assignment specifically, but I would like to just point out one thing in particular, because it's a little bit confusing, is that if you click on the article here, you'll be taken to this. I don't think it's a book. It's kind of a short essay, not a short essay, it's 50 pages. Um, but if you go to the contents, you'll see the section called Knowing the Oriental, which is pages 31 through 48 of this. And that's based on the page numbers at the bottom of the pages. So if you go down to page 31, oh, no, it's not based on the bottom of the pages, which is why it was confusing, which is why I wanted to tell you this. It says page 31, but really in the text, it's page 39. So I think it's pages like 39 through 58 here. But basically, this guy, Arthur James Balfour, was lecturing in the House of Commons in relation to things that were going on in Egypt. And he is, in his speech, this is in 1910, but in his speech, he's using comments about Orientals, Orientalism, basically to justify British subjugation of Egyptian culture. And at this time, people on the opposite end were beginning to think about, well, if you call people from like Egypt Oriental and also from China Oriental and India Oriental, and you just use this term to basically lump everybody in from all these cultures, essentially the term has no meaning. And other people were thinking of it in a subjugatory way, as a term that was being used basically to justify staying in these cultures, dominating them, and exploiting them for resources. And so he's responding here to claims from other people who are claiming that England should get out of these countries and let them be autonomous, because essentially it's a new form of slavery, at the very least, state domination. And so he's replying to this. And so you might be thinking, how does this all relate? Why are we reading about this? But essentially this week on colonialism is all about the period in time when certain cultures and nations decided to take over other cultures and totally dominate them. And in general, it led to things like exporting people for slavery. It led to murder. It led to use of the resources, stealing resources from people, stealing their lives, stealing their families, killing them, and all of these things under the guise of progress and freedom and these Western concepts that people, Christianity, for example, religion, that they claimed that these other people needed. And so they would go in and, like the saving white man, we hear about that. Of course, in our own nation, this happened as well, all up and down the Americas, from Canada all the way into South America. European people came over and decided to teach everybody what true religion was, and to try to teach them about reason and all of these concepts and science and all these things. And in so doing, they did a lot of really terrible things. You wonder why everybody, well, not everybody, there are a few countries where people speak different languages in South America, but why are a majority of the countries Spanish speaking? Because the Spanish came in and took over everything, right? There were people who lived there before, right? I heard a joke. It's like, you remind me of Christopher Columbus. You're always like discovering things that people have known about for thousands of years. We say that, Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, or the Caribbean islands or whatever, but people were already there, right? And they had been for maybe even up to like 40 or 50,000 years. So anyway, all of that to say, we're going to be examining this week concepts of colonialism. Heart of Darkness is a novel, for those who might not know. Basically, if you've seen the movie Apocalypse Now, that movie was essentially totally based on Heart of Darkness. But it is the experience of this guy, Joseph Conrad, who was supposedly, well, he was a sailor in addition to being a writer and all of these other things. But he traveled to the Belgian Congo, which is now, or was Zaire, and now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and has split off. There are other countries that have split off from that area, but he traveled there, and it's his story of traveling into this kind of jungle where there is a person named Kurtz who is waiting, or who has kind of gone off the rails, and he is sent out to interact with Kurtz and to bring back a bunch of ivory and things. But anyway, it has a lot of themes of colonialism. And as you'll see this week, it has created a lot of literature as to whether or not Conrad was racist himself. Some people interpret the book as being a critique of imperialist colonialism, because it's pretty evident in the book that the person writing it or narrating it has a lot of regret about what was going on there. So anyway, there's a lot of ambivalence in all of this, and it's very complex. But I've gone on too long. But anyway, welcome to week 2, and let's have another great week.